Thanks for watching. Today a tiny mini review. I've done 100 miles on my Axial SCX102 version 2. They're ready to run and I'm dead impressed with it. I'm not one to do reviews, but I think 100 miles with a ready to run without anything actually breaking is pretty much noteworthy. So here we go. How do I know that, because people on Instagram have asked me, how do I know that I've actually done 100 miles with it? I use this app called Map My Walk. It's an app that is, I believe, made by Under Armour. If you're not familiar with Under Armour, everybody has those fitness friends who go to the gym 6 times a week. And usually they wear like something with like a U and an A. Well, that's Under Armour, so that's to make sure that you know that they actually lift a lot of weights during the week and whatnot. They're also usually the people who fucking skip leg day, and that's the only thing that I do. I only do leg day. The only product by Under Armour that I use is their app. Their app is actually fucking awesome. So it allows you to not just track where you've been, but it also allows you to track how far you've gone. So every time I'm out with my truck, I start the app and I can instantly completely track how many miles I've done. I can also see how many miles my batteries last, for example. I'll get into that a tiny bit later. What have I done to the truck? Not a whole lot on the outside. On the outside you see a few accessories. I will give you this, by the way, instantly. I'm not like plugging this shit hardcore or whatnot, but usually I do it at the end of the video. Code HemiStorm10 gives you 10% off in the Proline Racing web store. So everything that you see on here, Proline, plenty of items, you can get those with a 10% discount. You don't have to watch this video to use that discount, so just wanted to pass it out. They've been kind enough to supply me with that code. Make sure that it actually gets put to some use. I have in the front a faux winch. I'm a firm believer in the hand of God, so I don't need an actual functioning winch. Plus, I wanted to do this thing entirely on a budget. I also have a Proline Racing light bar on the roof. Does prevent a lot of damage in case you do have a rollover. And on the back I got like a jerry can mounted to the rear bumper with like a screw in the bottom. That's about it. A lot of people were concerned when I started painting this ready to run body on the outside about how it would actually hold up. Well, there's a ton of a trail rash, but I mean you would have that if you had painted it on the inside as well. So that's really, I think, not a big concern at all. Painting up on the outside, as long as you degrease it properly before you start painting, it holds up really nicely and is really easy to touch up. So in case, for example, on these wheel arches, that if that would bother you, that you at some point see through the black, it's really easy. You know, you can just mask it up and you can just touch it up with some paint. Apart from that, I haven't done anything to the outside. I think one of the most important modifications that I've done were actually wheels and tires. These are the Denali 1.9s made by Proline, along with the Hyrax tires. And these tires, they're brilliant, very grippy, especially in the cold weather. Right now it's still full on snow out here, and if you do want to run your truck, having a bit of a softer compound tire, like for example these Hyraxes, greatly helps in making sure that you get up some hills that you otherwise wouldn't stand a chance against. So these are the stock wheels and tires. These are Methods, and they're glued tires, BF Goodrich's. Not a bad tire at all. I think that I've had them on there for about 30 miles, so I did put a few miles on these as well. They're not bad at all, but these tires, these Hyraxes, are a whole lot better. Apart from that, there's nothing on the outside that you can see that that actually is modified. Now also with these wheels and tires, these are beadlock wheels, so there's a ton of hardware that also sort of helps in putting some more weight in the very bottom of the car, and I don't know, makes it a tiny bit more capable out on the trails. This thing has been in mud, in water, in cement even, in snow, in salt, you name it, and it has seen it. So I've been really putting it through a lot of abuse, and really there's nothing I can complain about that has caved in or didn't suffer any breakages at all. I haven't been pampering it, so I haven't been giving it a lot of love or whatnot. Every day when I get home I go shower, and weirdly enough I take the car in the shower with me. I just completely hose it down. I use like a paintbrush to get most of the muck off, And if I see after it air drying, if I see it rusting up a tiny bit, I just applied a tiny bit of WD-40. Until today I had not opened the diffs, I hadn't done a thing to it, and it's just been performing like a champ. This is the Proline Cherokee interior. A lot of people have been asking what interior actually fits inside this SCX10 version 2. I believe there's a few printed interiors as well that you can get for it, 3D printed. Well, again, you know, I wanted to do this really cheap, so this is the Proline Cherokee body. It's a bit too short and it's a bit too narrow, but that's not that big of a deal. The only thing you want to get rid of is that whole see-through effect. So what I did is I just hot glued some foam to the sides. I always recommend people keeping their scrap pieces of Lexan, so in case you ever paint a body and you need to cut it out, just hold on to those scrap pieces. I actually made a set of inner fenders from it, and I lengthened up the interior a tiny bit just to make sure that it is a full fit for that axial body. You'll lack about I think 1.5 inches in the back and like 1 inch in width, but this is a good way to bridge that gap and to still have the illusion of the truck having an interior. Really cheap driver figures, $7 a piece. Bought these a couple of years ago. They were skaters, but I had to cut them in half at the waist because this is not a full depth interior. So I actually cut their legs off and their skateboards and their shoes with it. So the shoes, I hot glued those in place in the very back. The skateboards are sitting here in the back seat, and I zip tied these guys down just to also sort of give it the illusion of them wearing a seatbelt, because safety first. Hot glue is awesome to glue your accessories. However, in cold weather, of course, it does become a tiny bit brittle. So in case you do roll your truck over and it's minus whatever, you will see that those items will get unglued. Really simple. If you have a lighter in your pocket, you can instantly heat up the hot glue, stick it back on, and otherwise it's really easy to replace. So not a big deal. That was the only thing that I broke. Now let's have a look at those inner fenders. Again, this is a scrap Lexan. Didn't cost me a thing. I had some spare hardware laying around as well, so I used that to sort of bolt it together, and Velcro did the rest. So this is also Velcroed on. It's really easy just to put something together if you just use a tiny bit of time and a bit of imagination. Throw something together, just put it in there. Because the only thing you want to do is get rid of that see-through effect. That's also something that I did on the front, just because I didn't want to see the battery or the steering servo. So what I actually did is I used two Proline parts trays. So if you buy, for example, these accessories or the light bar, you get them in a clear parts tray. I'm not sure if you've ever seen them or actually noticed them. If you actually keep them, it comes in pretty handy. I painted these up real quick, stuck them to the inside of the body with some Velcro, and well, they do the job. They keep some of the crap out and they get rid of that whole see-through effect. You will see that the rest of the inside of the body is a mess with hot glue, Velcro and all that stuff. Some wiring. I used a really cheap light kit, but it's been serving me well, so I have no complaints. The Velcro that's over here actually hooks up to the inner fenders in the back, just because I wanted to tuck the body a tiny bit, make it look a tiny bit more scale, more realistic than when it sort of skirts out like that. So I hope that makes sense. Electronics. Still using the stock radio. Tactic radio, no problems at all. The range is good. I like the way that it feels in my hand. The foam steering wheel is nice. You can trim it up nicely. So yeah, no complaints at all. The range on it, I think I've tested it up to 700 feet. So that's really impressive. At that point, you really need to focus and sort of strain your eyes in order to see your truck. So I'm impressed with that one. Well, it goes without saying then that the receiver is also still stock. The steering servo even is still stock. This thing got hung up plenty of times to the point where the thing really sort of needed to work to its full potential. Haven't stripped any gears, nothing. It could of course be a tiny bit faster and a tiny bit, it could have a tiny bit more torque, but I mean there's always room for stuff to be desired. But for a ready-to-run servo, this is not a bad one at all. The ESC did give in after about, I think, 25 miles. That's not a big deal. I swapped it out for this Castle Creations Mamba X. This is their newest 10-scale ESC, if you're not familiar with it. It's 2 to 6S capable. has a built-in BEC of 8 amps, and it's fully waterproof. So that thing has been performing awesome. I've also been testing, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to tell you this, but I've been testing some of these Castle 1406 censored motors. And they've been an absolute dream, really nice on a low RPM startup, very torquey. This is the 1900 kV version, which I would not recommend for the SCX10 version 2, just because it's enough of a lightweight car to actually go up a tiny bit. I've also tested a 2280 kV version. Currently I'm running a 2850 kV version, which is absolutely fantastic in this truck. Gives you a tiny bit more wheel speed, so if you do come across a clear piece of trail and just want to blast ahead a tiny bit, that 2850, make sure that you actually get some decent speed out of it. Batteries that I've been running, mostly these. So these are Dinogy batteries. They're a bit of a budget battery, but it's been performing really well. 5500 milliamps gets you about 6-7 miles of a stretch of running, and then of course depending on how you're running, but on average I do 6 to 8 hours with one of these batteries. Trailing of course is not about covering as much distance as possible in a short amount of time, so just take your time, have fun with it. If I take 2 of these packs with me when I'm out running, it's plenty to get me to where I want to go and back to my starting destination again. So, well, let's see, the last thing I think are shocks. These shocks that are on there currently, these are Proline PowerStrokes. I actually have not used them yet, but I had these on my SCX10 version 1. Was very pleased with them. These are the stock shocks. They're pretty good. The only thing is they don't hold their oil at all. So if you just want to run them oilless, which I know a lot of guys do on the trails, you may like these. I actually want to have something that does contain oil, so I changed them out just now. But these shocks have done 100 miles, so they're not bad at all. Nothing went wrong with them. They didn't break or whatnot. I'm running stock drive shafts. They're not even twisted. Stock everything. The only thing that I did right now is I looped everything up with a tiny bit of this Udder Butter by KRC. KRC, you may know them from the working mats. I've been using KRC working mats for a number of years. This is some of their waterproof grease. It's very thick. I use a brush to put it on. And apart from that, I just use some WD-40 just to make sure that stuff doesn't rust up. Now, I can plug it in real quick, just so you can actually hear that none of the bearings have gone bad. So that's pretty smooth. Startup is, I think, really good on these new Castle motors. And I mean, especially when you start loading this up a tiny bit, so when you actually put it with the wheels down, it whizzes past. There's absolutely no noise coming from the drivetrain on these Axials. I don't know, marvelous, ready to run, absolutely. Where I did have a few complaints with my version 1 of the SCX10, this version 2, I absolutely see no need to modify anything out of the box, apart from perhaps wheels and tires, if you choose to do so. Steering throw on it is great. You really don't need to spend 5, 6, 7 or 800 bucks to make this thing trail worthy. Anyway, really long video, I know, but I'm just dead impressed with this thing. Next month, I'll be, if you're watching this a whole lot later, next month, I mean March of 2017, I'll be taking this thing with me to USTE, that's Ultimate Scale Truck Expo in Florida. And the week after, I'm going to take it with me to Puerto Rico, or Puerto Rico, as a lot of people call it. There's also a scale event over there, so I'm really looking forward to taking this thing out on the trails and seeing how it performs. USTE is going to be a pretty unique event, the first of its kind. It's not competitive in any way. It's more geared towards the educational part of the hobby. They have a lot of industry-leading speakers. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to have, I think, 1300 gates. It's in this old botanical garden, a former quarry. It's supposed to be really amazing. I'm still really bad at muting my shit. If you have any questions about that event, I will make sure that there's a link in the description box. There's also a link to this Axial SCX10 version 2, some of the accessories that I use from Proline. I'll put a link in there to Dinogy, and I also put a link in there to the Mamba X. Not sure when those motors are coming out by Castle, but just keep an eye out and you will see them appear. Well, really long video. I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless, and give it a thumbs up if you did. If you have any questions, hit me up in the box below. I always answer, and if you have not subscribed yet, please do, because it's free. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.
We're back on.